The best wood for indoor projects is not what you think. But there's so many choices. What is the best wood? How much does it cost? Will it still look good over time? Is this wood readily available in my area? Will it match the wood I already have in my home? I'm gonna show you. Customers call me every day with all kinds of questions about lumber. K&J Lumber, how can I help you? Do you guys have 68 million feet long lumber? Sorry, Elon Musk hasn't invented the board stretcher yet, so give us a call back next year maybe. Take care now. Bye-bye then. And like you, they probably searched everywhere feeling overwhelmed by all of the online information. For example, a 1x8 by 10 foot maple at the big box stores is almost $69 at the time of filming this. That's a bleeping $10.25 per board foot. And that ain't gonna work if we need a lot of wood for our project. We haven't even gotten into any of the questions that we asked just a bit ago. So they go down an internet rabbit hole looking for lumber, and they eventually arrive at us, K&J Lumber. However, I have noticed something lately. It really comes down to understanding the difference between D.I.Y. and B.I.Y. But we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, we're gonna take a look at a couple species that I got up my sleeve. And I'm confident in a certain species of wood that could be the answer to all of our problems, no matter what part of the country you're living in. We're gonna start this bad boy off with the East Coast regions, and keep in mind, many of the species I'm about to name off are available in multiple regions across the United States. Species like maple, you can find it all over, but the East Coast really loves its maple. It's known for its hardness and lighter colored sapwood like this, and it's commonly used to contrast with darker woods. Some species of it can be really hard, so it's safe to say it can be tough on your tools. It's widely known by the syrup that comes from the sap and the figure and spalting it can produce. Here's a little bit of an industry secret for you. If you look on the outside of the log, underneath the bark, and you see some bumpy or wavy figure on the outside of the log, stuff like this where it has these little bumps and eyelets, that is a telltale sign that the wood's gonna be figured or even have bird's eye figure like this piece of maple does. East Coast loves white oak. There's many types of white oaks out there, but in our area we tend to get bur oak. But for the eastern regions, you'll see Quercus alba, aka the classic white oak, as well as chestnut oak and swamp oak. It's hard and durable, so like maple, it's gonna be hard on your tools. The East Coast is especially known for their walnut. It's one of the more softer of the hardwoods, so it's easier to work with. It's known for the awesome figure that it creates in the crotch lumber, but be careful though, it produces a natural herbicide called juglone, whatever. Spreading the sawdust on or near gardens can kill the plants that it comes in contact with, so it probably is really bad for your respiratory system. Let me know in the comments section if you've ever had any problems with the sawdust that comes from walnut lumber. And now for the southern regions, we're gonna start it off with cypress. When these logs are sunken and water treated, it creates sinker cypress, which is prized by furniture makers. It's naturally rot resistant, but when it's attacked by a fungus, it creates pockets or pecks in the wood called pecky cypress. And it's commonly used for interior panels and accents. Cypress was also used by NASA to test space shuttle external fuel tanks. Southern yellow pine, this is where we get turpentine from. It's a species I don't know much about except for the fact that it's not a single species, but a group of pine species including longleaf and shortleaf. It's the strongest of the North American pines and is commonly used for framing and construction. Be sure to let me know if I'm forgetting any species here. And now for my motherland, the Midwest. And like the eastern region, a lot of species here can be found all over the country, like hickory. Aside from the delicious barbecue it helps to create, it's commonly used for cabinets, but it's also great for things that need to be durable like flooring and tool handles. Basswood is a really soft hardwood, so it's great for beginner wood turning practice and things like that. It's also another one of the species that can produce a curly grain pattern in the wood, and it handles heat very well too, so I recommend it a lot as an alternative to cedar for saunas and things like that. Oh yeah, don't use this as an exterior application because it rots really easily outdoors. Here's a pro tip. The sapwood of basswood can be mixed and matched with both aspen and poplar. They look pretty similar and they both grow all over the country. Ash is the steam bending champion. This is what they typically use to make baseball bats with. The emerald ash borer beetle is devastating this species here in North America, so get it while you can. Ash is known for its swirling cathedral grain patterns and rustic look, and is getting more popular with those in the Pinterest boards. The western region is next, and I don't know much about the species from this area, but people ask me about it a lot. Some of the species in this region were used for finished carpentry in some of the old houses here in Minnesota, so people need them to fix up those old homes. Starting with the redwood species, think of the California redwood trees that you can drive the cars through. I don't know anything about them. We did resaw some of that in a previous video, I'll link it here. The bark is said to be fire resistant, and the lumber is naturally rot resistant. And a little fun fact here, it's actually one of the only species that can absorb moisture from fog through its needles. And because it's naturally rot resistant, it's commonly used for exterior projects, but it can also be used for interior accents too. Douglas fir. Did you know that it's not actually a fir tree? It belongs to its own genus called Sudatsuga, or Sudotsuga. Is that how you say it? Which means false hemlock. It's a strong and durable softwood that's used for structural building and rustic looking furniture. Sometimes it can be used for finished carpentry, but what if it's not available in your area? What if none of these are available? What if you've got no choice but to find something local? When I look at images of Douglas fir online, it reminds me of pine, particularly southern yellow pine. So I would assume that could be a solution to that problem. Others seem to think hemlock and European larch seem to be a close match. What do you think? Have you matched species with others and gotten away with it? People sometimes ask me if we sell a certain type of wood from the West Coast. And no, it's not the western red cedar, even though it's a good species that's only available on the West Coast. I'm talking about a species that's not only used for interior projects, but Native Americans have also used it for centuries to smoke salmon. Oh boy, not actually putting the salmon in their pipe to smoke. You know what I mean, jeez. A quarter Native, so I can make jokes about Native Americans. Don't cancel me. So Kendall's been working on an addition to his home, and instead of telling you, let me just show you. He decided to use rustic cherry paneling for his ceilings. And he also hired a regular customer of ours named Brian to build custom cherry cabinets to go underneath his sink with cherry trim around the door to the bathroom. Long story short, when I went to go and check it out, I noticed that he added a beautiful cherry door to the bathroom as well. So I thought to myself, I don't remember him complaining about having to build a door out of all that cherry he was taking out of the kiln-dried warehouse. So when I asked him about it, his response was, I didn't build that, I got it from Menards. So I was amazed that he had managed to find a cherry door at Menards. But he didn't. When I pressed him about it, he told me that the door was made from alder. Alder is famous for its knots. However, the knots of the alder wood can actually be harder than the wood itself, so keep that in mind when working with it. And famous guitar brands like Fender have used alder in the past to make their electric guitars. Yet, this is the same exact alder that a lot of my customers have been asking me about. And it dawned on me, all these people that needed alder to match their existing wood interior, they could have used cherry instead. And it might be cheaper than trying to source it from the West Coast. On the other hand, this might not work vice versa. What do you think? Can you use cherry as a replacement for alder? It might not be a perfect match, but it's pretty darn close. And I know I'm missing some wood species here, so if you know a wood type that would match well with another wood type, go ahead and let us know in the comments section. Now we named off a few good species here and some that I've probably forgotten, but cherry is pretty expensive. Here at K&J Lumber, we price our 4-quarter cherry select at $6.25 per board foot. Now I can imagine that alder gets pretty expensive if you got to ship it in from the West Coast too. We run into another problem here. Cherry and alder can only match themselves really. What if we need something else? What if we need to match something that has a certain color or a certain grain pattern? You can stain the crap out of a piece of pine, but it'll only work so well. It won't look like the walnut or the ash that we need to match. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe I have a solution for you. Now, most people will probably say that there's better solutions out there, and they're gonna tell us in the comments section, but I think this one's worth a stain test. Let me show you. Keep in mind, this video is not about wood stains. It's about a certain type of wood that we're using. And in my opinion, is the best wood for interior projects. It'll all make sense in a bit. Kendall would always mention this species of wood to people because it's pretty versatile. This particular species has a stigma around it because it was used a lot in the 80s and 90s. Probably a little bit too much. He'd tell me that you could stain this species to look identical to most species, even walnut. And if you haven't guessed by now, we're talking about red oak. It's always important to use a pre-stain conditioner on any staining you're doing. By the next time you see me, this wood will be pre-stained. Yes, my friends, red oak is a species that Kendall tells me can stand in the place of any semi-open grain wood you need. Red oak is known to take stains very well. The stains that I'm using are from Menards, but I'll drop a link in the description so you guys can check them out for yourselves. And with its prominent grain pattern, you could also stain it to look like ash, white oak, or even mahogany. Red oak is surprisingly flexible for a hardwood. It responds well to steam bending. This makes red oak a good choice for projects like bentwood chairs, curved moldings, and even musical instruments. It's not perfect, but it's close. We got black ash here. Look at that results. This is raw, this is finished, and that's the white, pastel white. We got walnut here. I don't know how well. I think this turned out really well. I think this would have did better if this were planed though. But the results are pretty good. And another little bit of a secret, you'll have to let me know how this red mahogany color turned out, because I don't know what mahogany looks like. Another spur of the moment idea I had was, instead of red oak for things like walnut and cherry, you could also do soft maple, which is cheaper than hard maple, has a similar grain pattern. You could stain the soft maple with a pre-stained conditioner, make it look like walnut or cherry or really anything that has a similar grain pattern. Red oak is very versatile. Red oak is only available in the eastern half of the United States. But we mentioned alder earlier, how it could take a stain well, and that alder could quite literally be the red oak of the West. And again, this reminds me of the difference between D.I.Y. and B.I.Y. and I'm gonna finally explain the differences between those two. There's a lot of different types of customers that come and buy lumber from us. You got your experienced woodworker who knows they got some work to do before they get a finished product. You got your hobby woodworker. You even get your Pinterest mom that drags her husband in here looking for a finished product. But we don't sell finished products. We sell finished grade lumber. Did you catch what I meant there? And yes, I'm finally talking about those that are do-it-yourselfers and those that are buy-it-yourselfers. Kendall once told me it's called the woodworker for a reason. The woodworker. You have to take the wood that's available to you and make it what you want. And unless there's a lot of money we could throw at it, sometimes we gotta just take what God gave us and make that work. Now there's a lot of species here in this video. Some are close matches, and one you can transform literally into anything you want. Now they're not gonna be perfect solutions, but the best wood for interior projects is right there in your head. You just have to think outside the box and get creative. And speaking of getting creative, sometimes these wood species get pretty hard to identify. And if you have a certain type of interior that you need to match, but you're not sure what type of wood it is, posting pictures of your living room wall to the Facebook woodworking groups and scouring the Reddit forums for answers can be pretty frustrating and time consuming, which is why we've created a guide that can help you identify those wood species in this video right here. Packed full of unique ways of identifying wood species that I bet you haven't even tried yet. We'll see you there, brother and sister. Hey, I bought some of your wood and I read the tape measure backwards, and now, long story short, I only have one arm now. Take care now. Bye-bye then.